Last summer, I needed a break from my dull routine. So, I decided to spend a week alone at my late grandfather's cabin in the woods. I thought it would be a great way to find inspiration and reconnect with nature. The cabin sat by a lake, surrounded by tall pine trees. It looked old, with weathered wooden walls and dusty furnishings. It felt peaceful at first. On the second night, as I lay in bed, I heard creaking sounds. The floorboards were moving, like someone was walking around. It scared me, but I figured it was just the cabin settling. I tried to ignore it. Days rolled on, and things got stranger. One morning, I found a family of raccoons digging through my backpack. I shooed them away, annoyed but curious about how they got so close. The next night, I noticed deep scratches on the cabin's exterior. They looked almost like claw marks. I felt a chill but dismissed it as nature acting up. I was alone in the woods, after all. Then, I started seeing shadows. Every time I glanced over, I'd see a shape darting past the corner of my eye. I'd turn to look, but nothing would be there. It made my heart race. I told myself it was just my mind playing tricks. The laughter was the worst. Children's laughter echoed through the trees at dusk. It felt joyful, yet it made me uneasy. I was sure I was alone, or so I thought. It felt as if something was watching me, but when I'd look, the woods were still. Half of me wanted to believe it was my imagination. The other half didn't. I remembered my grandfather's warnings about the cabin. He said there were things in those woods best left alone. I used to laugh at those stories, thinking he was just trying to scare me. But now, fear crept in. What if he knew something I didn't? One night, I woke suddenly to those creaking floorboards again. My heart raced as I listened. This time it was louder. I held my breath, feeling that presence again. Time felt frozen. I tried to convince myself it was just the old cabin. But then I heard a whisper. It was so soft I could barely catch it, but it was real. I turned around quickly, but nobody was there. Panic hit me. I lay wide-eyed in the dark, afraid to move. I kept telling myself it was part of the experience, part of being alone in the woods. Friendliness of nature and all that, right? But deep down, I felt trapped. The next morning, I found more scratches outside. They were deeper and looked fresh. I knew I should leave. But I was drawn to the place. On my last night, as I sat by the lake, I could hear that laughter again. Only this time, it was closer. I had to know what it was. I grabbed a flashlight and headed toward the sound. The darkness wrapped around me. That's when I realized I was not alone, even though I couldn't see who, or what, was with me. And I never should have come back. I stepped cautiously into the woods, the beam of my flashlight slicing through the darkness. The laughter drifted further into the trees, sweet but eerie. I could feel the chill in the air, and something in my gut told me to turn back, but my curiosity pushed me forward. As I walked, the trees seemed to close in around me. Shadows flitted between the trunks, teasing me with glimpses of movement. I called out, half expecting a response, but only the night air answered. My heart pounded, each sound magnified. The squelch of damp earth beneath my shoes, the rustling leaves, my own breath, everything felt heightened. Then, a sudden silence. The laughter stopped. I squinted into the darkness, my pulse racing. It was as if the forest held its breath. My instincts screamed at me to leave, but I was too curious to relent. "What is going on?" I shouted into the void, hoping to shatter the silence. Just then, there was a rustling sound to my right. I turned my flashlight toward it. There, half obscured by the underbrush, stood a small figure. A child. My heart skipped a beat. A little girl, with tangled hair and a tattered dress. She looked at me, her eyes wide and bright, but the smile on her face felt wrong. "Come play with us," she said, her voice soft yet chilling. "Who are you?" I called, my voice trembling. "Where are your parents?" But she simply giggled. The laughter returned, echoing from somewhere deeper in the woods. I took a step backward, the hair on my neck standing up. "Wait!" I called, desperate to get answers. But she turned and ran, darting into the shadows. I followed, against my better judgment, convinced I could find out what was happening. As I chased her further into the woods, the laughter grew louder, surrounding me, filling my ears. I stumbled through the underbrush, branches clawing at my arms, but I pressed on. And then I saw them. A group of children, all gathered in a clearing, their faces illuminated by an eerie glow. They were dancing, but their movements felt off, like a play caught in fast forward. It was unnatural. I froze, anxiety washing over me as I watched a mix of fear and morbid fascination. Suddenly, the girl from before turned and noticed me. The other children paused, their heads snapping in my direction. Their smiles widened, and I felt an instinctual dread fill me. "Join us!" They cried in unison, their voices echoing in a way that felt like they were feeding off my fear. I turned to run, fear propelling me back through the twisted woods. But soon, I realized the path was lost. The trees looked unfamiliar, closing in tighter with every step. The laughter followed me, growing louder and more sinister. I ran. I had to escape. But no matter how fast I moved, they were right behind me. I slipped, falling hard against the damp ground, the flashlight slipping from my hand and flickering out. In the darkness, I felt a tug on my sleeve. My breath caught in my throat. With shaking hands, I quickly turned to confront whatever had caught me. That's when I saw it, the small girl, her face inches from mine, twisted into a wide, unnatural grin. "You shouldn't have come back," she hissed, her voice suddenly cold. And that's when everything went dark. I blinked, but my eyelids felt heavy. I was lying on the cool forest floor, disoriented. My heart raced from the panic, but all was quiet now. The darkness around me felt suffocating. I pushed myself up, my hands trembling as I wiped dirt from my face. "Hello?" I tried, my voice barely above a whisper. There was no reply. I reached for my flashlight, the momentary hope of finding it flooded my mind. But when I looked around, there was nothing. Just blackness. I crawled forward, trying to remember which direction led out of this nightmare. The laughter was gone, replaced by an eerie stillness. Fear coiled in my stomach. I needed to get back to the cabin. I needed to get away from here. As my eyes adjusted to the dark, I spotted something faint, a glimmer of light, far off in the distance. I took a deep breath and pushed myself forward. Each foreboding crack of twigs underfoot felt like it echoed through the quiet night. I made my way toward the light, my mind racing. What had happened to the children? Where had the girl gone? That twisted grin haunted my thoughts. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of crawling through the underbrush, I reached the edge of a clearing. I could see shadows moving in the light. My pulse quickened. The glow was coming from a campfire, flickering at the center of the clearing where the children had danced. I could see them now, those same children, sitting in a circle around the fire. They were still. No more laughter. No dance. I stepped carefully, curiosity forcing me to approach, even as fear clawed at me. Just as I drew nearer, one of the children looked up. It was the little girl. She met my eyes, and I felt a jolt of recognition. "You came back," she said, almost matter-of-factly. "What do you want from me?" I asked, desperation lacing my voice. "Tell her," one of the other children said, nodding towards the girl, who smiled but stayed silent. "Tell her what?" I felt the air grow colder. And then, without warning, they all began to chant, "Join us, join us, join us." Their voices rose and fell in a haunting melody, a sickly sweet invitation that filled the clearing. "No!" I shouted, stumbling backward. "I want tea." As I turned to flee, the ground shifted beneath my feet. The dirt seemed to swirl like a vortex. I lost my balance, falling hard to the ground again. Panic surged through me as I scrambled to rise, but a force pressed down. "Stay," the girl's voice rang out, crystal clear amidst the chaos. In that moment, I felt something cold wrap around my ankles. I looked down in horror to see roots snaking their way up from the ground, binding me in place. I fought against them, thrashing as I felt the ground cling tighter. Then, just as suddenly as it started, everything stopped. The fire flickered back to life, brighter than before. The children were gone, but I could still feel their presence surrounding me. Then, from the shadows emerged a figure I had not seen before, tall and looming. My breath caught once more. I blinked in disbelief. Whoever or whatever it was not friendly. And that's when I felt another grip not on my legs, but around my throat. I gasped, my throat tightening as the cold grip squeezed tighter. I struggled, but the pressure only increased. My vision blurred as fear crept in completely. "Who are you?" I managed to croak out, desperately trying to pry whatever was holding me loose. The figure stepped into the light of the campfire, revealing a face that was a twisting shadow of darkness. It had no features as it loomed over me, just a void where eyes should be. It leaned closer, and I felt a rush of icy breath wash over my face. "You shouldn't have come here," it hissed, its voice a chilling whisper that sent shivers down my spine. With a surge of adrenaline, I fought against the grip around my throat. I needed to breathe. I needed to escape. "Let me go." I gasped, desperation clawing at me, but the figure only chuckled, a sound that echoed through the clearing. "Join them. Be part of the fun," it mocked. Suddenly, the ground shifted beneath me again. The roots tightened and pulled, dragging me deeper into the earth. My mind raced. I couldn't let this happen. I focused on the firelight, the flicker like a beacon of hope amidst the suffocating darkness. "Get away from her." A voice broke through the shadows, startling both me and the looming figure. I turned to see the little girl from before, standing just beyond the firelight. Her expression was no longer playful, it was fierce. "That's not your choice to make," the figure hissed, its grip on me slackening just enough for me to take a breath. The girl took a step forward. "Stop it. Don't let it take you," she shouted, urgency lacing her voice. "Fight back." I struggled against the grip of the roots as the figure turned towards her, frustration emanating from its dark form. I felt my chance slipping away, but I couldn't just give in. I closed my eyes and concentrated. Memories flooded my mind, safe places, happy times, anything to anchor me. Then I remembered the cabin, its familiar walls. The warmth of the fire inside, the laughter of friends. With a power I didn't know I had, I screamed, "No. I want to join you." The figure recoiled as if my words burned it. The roots hesitated, then began to withdraw. I seized the moment, pulling my legs free. I stumbled to my feet, my heart racing. "Run!" the girl urged me, her eyes wide. "While you still can." I didn't need to be told twice. I turned and sprinted back into the forest, dodging branches that clawed at me like desperate hands. I could hear the hollow laughter behind me, but I pushed on. I had to escape. Breathless, I reached the cabin. The door creaked ominously as I swung it open, my instinct screaming for me to flee inside. But the moment I stepped into the light, I froze. The cabin was empty. How could it be empty? I turned around, scanning the dark woods behind me, but there was nothing. No laughter, no figure, nothing. Still trembling, I stepped inside, the door slamming shut behind me. I leaned against it, my heart pounding, drenched in sweat. Somehow, I knew it wasn't over. Just as I began to catch my breath, a soft knock echoed through the silence. It came again, persistent. And with that, my stomach twisted in dread. I slowly turned towards the source of the sound, my heart dropping. "Let us in," a familiar voice called from outside. I took a step back from the door, my heart racing again. The voice calling out was eerily familiar, too familiar. "Let us in," it echoed, sending dread coursing through me. "Please, we need your help." I didn't want to believe it, but it sounded like my friend Mark. The memory of his laughter and easygoing nature came rushing back. But what did they need help with? I could hardly think straight. "Mark?" I called cautiously, my voice shaking. "Is that you?" Silence hung in the air for a moment, then the response came again, softer this time. "It's us, we're out here." The other voices chimed in, familiar and comforting yet twisted by something dark. I felt longing to open the door, to see them again. But I knew something was off. The terror I encountered outside weighed heavier than nostalgia. "Why are you here?" I pressed. "What happened?" There was shuffling beyond the door as though they were gathering, whispering. "We just want to come in. We know you can help us. Just open the door." I shook my head, taking another step back. The figure from before flashed in my mind, dark and void. "No." I spoke firmly, though fear tightened my chest. "I can't let you in." A low sound erupted from outside, a chorus of strange laughter that echoed the haunting sound from the figure before. "You don't want to leave us out here, do you? We could play again. You could join us." Something stirred inside me, an urge to escape. I dropped to my knees, clutching my head. I didn't want to play. Not with whatever that was. Rattling began at the door, urgent and frantic. The voices merged, becoming a jumble that made no sense. "Open up. Let us in. It's safe with us. We're your friends." I pressed my palms to my ears, trying to block out the noise. "Stop. You're not my friends," I shouted, panic flooding my system. "Leave me alone." The response was unsettling. The laughter transformed into a low growl that reverberated through the walls. "You can't escape us." The sound made my skin crawl. I moved to the window with shaky legs, peering outside. The forest seemed to shift, shadows weaving into some sort of dark tapestry. They were there, all of them, Mark, Sarah, Mike, standing just out of reach, their faces distorted as if they were trying to mask pain or struggle. "Please, come outside," one of them pleaded, their voice broken. "We can't stay out here much longer." That's when I saw it. A darkness creeping up behind them, a malevolent presence that wrapped around my friends, pulling them deeper into its grasp. My heart dropped as they faded into shadows, their features melding into one. "No!" I yelled, panic surging again. I couldn't just let this happen. The roots beneath the cabin felt alive, writhing as if echoing my fear. "Get away! Get away from them!" I backed toward the fireplace, desperately looking for something, anything that could help. I didn't know what sparked it, but the flames crackled, casting eerie shadows on the walls. And then, without thinking, I grabbed the fire poker, its weight comforting in my hands. Determination steeled me. I couldn't let whatever was outside take control. But just as relief washed over me, a sickly sweet voice crooned from behind. "Why fight, dear? Just let them in. You won't be alone anymore." I spun around, dread seeping through me again. Standing there, blending with the darkness, was the figure, its void staring back, waiting. The moment stretched, and everything stopped. "You have to choose," it whispered, the words curling around me like smoke. Then the glass shattered, and the dark presence surged forward. I barely had time to react before the darkness lunged at me, a swirling mass that swallowed the room. My instincts kicked in. I swung the fire poker, the metal scraping against the wooden floor as I aimed for the emptiness. "Get back!" I screamed, the fear igniting my voice. The figure recoiled, but only slightly, as if it were toying with me. The room flickered with shadows, the flames casting long, spider-like shapes that danced along the walls. I couldn't shake the feeling that the fire was my only protection. "You can't have me!" I shouted defiantly, gripping the poker tighter. The darkness flowed around me, its coldness biting into my skin. "We are your friends," the words spilled out in chorus, the voices of Mark and the others blending with the figure's low growl. "Let us in." "No!" I roared, lunging forward to strike at the shadowy form. The poker met nothing but air. The figure dissolved, only to reappear behind me, its embrace closing in. It felt like a suffocating blanket trying to close off what little light remained. That I spun again, adrenaline surging, thrusting the poker at the figure once more. This time, I felt the tip connect with something soft and yielding. A pulse of energy surged through me, and I took a step back. "What are you?" I gasped, the realization hitting me hard. "Why fight what you desire?" It replied, the sick tone mocking me. "Join us. We are at peace." The sound of laughter erupted once again, twisted and unnatural. It wasn't just Mark and the others anymore. I could hear countless voices layered beneath their pleas. A sense of despair flooded through me. They were trapped, and it seemed I was the key. Suddenly, a vision danced before my eyes. I could see flashes of memories: Mark laughing, Sarah smiling, Mike goofing around. They were alive, vibrant. But they were being drawn into shadows of doubt, fears that twisted their laughter into agony. "This isn't their choice," I whispered, understanding dawning amid my panic. "Your resistance means nothing." The figure lunged again, but I was ready this time. I swung the poker with all my might, aiming for the heart of the void. The weapon hit something solid. Shadows erupted, and a horrid scream filled the air, piercing through the chaos. Then, everything went silent. The darkness recoiled, swirling angrily around me before dissipating into thick mist. I stumbled backward, panting, my heart racing. That's when I noticed that the door I had barred was now ajar. A sage whisper beckoned from beyond it, carrying an alarming calm. "Help is here," it murmured, almost like a sweet lullaby. It was neither the voices of my friends nor the malignant force I had just battled. It was different, familiar in a way that sent chills racing down my spine. That I approached the door slowly, heart pounding once more. With a trembling hand, I pushed it open just a crack. Outside, the mist receded, revealing the glimmer of something bright, something inviting, but I knew better. I couldn't give in now. I had been warned. Then, a new wave of dark laughter broke through the lingering silence, and I realized I wasn't alone. Someone or something was still inside the cabin with me. The air grew thick with tension as I turned back to face the room, my heart sinking further. I had to figure out what was truly going on here, and fast. I needed answers before it was too late. The air was heavy, almost suffocating. I stood still, my heart pounding in my ears as I scanned the shadows, searching for the source of the laughter. It echoed off the walls, and every sound seemed amplified in that dread-filled silence. I didn't want to believe I was alone. Not after everything that had happened. But the chilling laughter made my skin crawl. I tightened my grip on the poker, feeling the familiar weight of it in my hands. I had to be ready. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice barely above a whisper. Silence followed, thick and oppressive. The flickering flames danced wildly, casting erratic shadows that seemed to mock my fear. Somewhere in my gut, I felt the urge to flee, but I couldn't. I'd come too far. Then I noticed a faint movement in the corner, a shadow shifting, feeding off the light around it. I stepped toward it, cautious but determined. "Show yourself," I demanded, the firelight glinting off the poker. As if in response, the shadow twisted into a more defined shape. A figure emerged from the darkness, its features shrouded but familiar. "It's me," the voice said. It was a whisper, haunting and nostalgic. "Don't you recognize me?" My breath caught in my throat. "Mark?" I stuttered, disbelief flooding my senses. The laugh echoed again, gleeful and sinister. "You're not Mark. You can't be." The figure smiled, if it could be called that. It contorted in a way that made my stomach churn. "Oh, but I am. And I bring you a message." I stumbled back, my heart racing. "What do you want?" "You're not real." "Oh, but I am," it replied, moving closer. "We missed you. We want you back with us, in our world." I shook my head, eyes wide with panic. "This is a trick. You can't have me." The poker was ready, but terror rooted me in place. "Join us, and we can be together again," it offered, the voice softening. The twisted sincerity hung in the air like a tempting invitation. Memories washed over me, the laughter, the adventures, the bond we shared. But then I remembered their faces, lost in the depths of my mind. "Leave!" I shouted, my voice cracking. "Get away from me!" I swung the poker, feeling the heat of desperation. The figure flinched, but then it only laughed, that horrid sound rising in the room. "You cannot escape what is inside you. We are bound together." My instincts screamed for me to fight, but deep down, I felt the weight of truth in its words. They were lost, tangled within the darkness they couldn't escape. Was I really the key to setting them free? Then I saw it, the glint of something between us. A small mirror lying broken on the floor, fragments catching the dim light. As I stepped back, one piece reflected a grotesque visage of my friends, their faces distorted in agony, screaming for help that would never come. Everything happened in a blur. I dropped the poker and grabbed the mirror, holding it to the figure. "No. You're not real. This isn't who you are." Suddenly, all laughter ceased. I could feel the tension pulsing through the air, awaiting release. Then the walls trembled, darkness swirling around us like a cyclone. And just like that, the figure began to lose shape, flickering in and out like a dying signal. "You will regret this choice," it hissed, the voices of my friends fading away as it crumbled into the mist. The cabin was quiet again, eerily still. I stood alone, the broken mirror in my hands, the remnants of that encounter still swirling in my mind. Just when I thought I was safe, a low growl reverberated through the silence, echoing from the depths of the cabin. A new presence emerged, darker and more menacing than before. I was not done. Not by a long shot. I turned slowly, still trembling from the confrontation. The growl was deep and primal, shaking the floor beneath me. I forced myself to take a step back, eyes darting around the dark corners of the cabin for any sign of movement. My breath quickened, the air felt thick again, but now it was laced with something more menacing. "Who is there?" I whispered, willing my voice to stay steady. I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was lurking in the shadows was watching me. The flickering light from the fire hadn't changed, but now it seemed to cast longer, deeper shadows. Another growl erupted from the darkness, this time closer. Panic squeezed my chest. I retreated further, clutching the fragmented mirror tightly. What if whatever it was had come for me? Then I heard a rustling sound, like something dragging along the cabin floor. I squinted into the shadows, trying to make out the figure moving closer. It stopped, then stood still. I could feel the weight of its gaze on me, and dread washed over me. Suddenly, a flash of movement broke the tension. I swung around, the mirror raised defensively, ready to reflect whatever menace came at me. But there was nothing. Just the whimper of wind outside, and the weight of silence returned. I was losing my mind. That laugh, those faces had shaken my grip on reality. Maybe it was all in my head. I had to push through this, find a way to escape whatever was haunting me. I backed toward the door, refusing to take my eyes off the shadows. As I turned, I noticed something glinting in the firelight, partially buried beneath the layers of dust on the floor, another piece of the mirror. It caught my attention, shimmering like a beacon of hope amidst the darkness. Without thinking, I reached down to grab it, my fingers brushing against the cold glass. The moment I picked it up, the growl returned, louder and more desperate this time. I spun around, now holding two pieces of the shattered mirror. "What do you want from me?" I yelled, my voice echoing off the walls. "Show yourself." And then it happened. The darkness seemed to ripple, and from it emerged a creature. It was hulking and grotesque, with eyes that burned like embers. It was nothing like I'd ever seen, a nightmare made flesh. My heart raced. Everything in me screamed to run, but I was frozen, eyes locked on the creature as it took a step closer. It opened its mouth, a wide, toothy grin revealing rows of jagged teeth. "You should have joined us earlier," it rumbled, voice dripping with malice. My instincts kicked in. I raised the pieces of the mirror, desperately hoping it would have the same effect as before. "Get back!" I shouted, my voice wavering. Just as I thought the creature would rush at me, it hesitated, its gaze fixated on the shards in my hand. "In the reflection lies your truth," it said, its voice a sinister whisper. "Show me your true self." Confusion flooded my mind. What truth? I had no desire to face whatever it wanted from me. I was ready to fight, ready to protect myself, but there was something about its words that resonated beneath my fear. Before I could respond, the temperature in the cabin dropped. I felt the chill seep into my bones. The shadows grew longer, swirling around us like a storm. Suddenly, there was a loud crash from upstairs, a loud thud that shook the walls. The creature's eyes flickered, attention drawn away as it turned toward the noise. My chance. I bolted for the door, adrenaline surging through me. As I burst outside into the cold night air, I realized that I wasn't finished with this darkness yet. I hadn't escaped, I'd only just begun to uncover the grip this cabin had on me. I needed answers. And now, it seemed, I wasn't the only one seeking them. As I stumbled into the moonlit night, my heart raced. I needed to get away from that creature, but deep down, I felt a pull to understand what was happening. The crash from upstairs echoed in my mind like a clarion call. Someone or something was in that cabin with me. I hesitated outside, my breath visible in the frigid air. With every passing moment, the shadows of the night seemed to weave a web tighter around this cabin. I had to act fast. I dashed around the side, searching for another entrance, another opportunity to confront whatever lay within. The back of the cabin was lit by the dull glow of the moon, revealing a small window. It was partial to dirt and grime, but if I stood on my tiptoes, I could peep inside. My heart pounded as I rose, praying the glass wouldn't crack under my weight. What I saw made my stomach drop. The living room was empty, but not in the way I had hoped. The walls were adorned with strange symbols, scratching and etching that twisted into grotesque shapes. Everything felt wrong, as if the very fabric of the cabin was alive and breathing, a thing that wanted to ensnare you. I turned to leave but was met with a frozen scene. A figure loomed behind me, staring intently through the darkness. My breath caught. Was it the creature? "Hey!" I shouted, startled, as the figure stepped closer into the moonlight. It was a woman, her clothes tattered and torn, her hair wild as if she had just emerged from a nightmare of her own. But it wasn't just her appearance that caught me off guard. There was a recognition in her eyes, deep and unsettling. "You shouldn't be here," she cried, her voice trembling but steady as she edged closer. "You don't know what you're dealing with." "What are you talking about?" I stammered, taken aback by her fervor. "I just heard a crash." "Are you okay?" "Okay. No one is okay in this place." She spat, a mix of fear and anger in her eyes. "The mirror, it can show you things you don't want to see. It binds you to this cabin." My heart sank at her words. I looked down at the shards still gripped tightly in my hands. "What do you mean?" "The creature said I had to show my true self. All of us who've entered here have been trapped like this," she whispered, stepping closer. "You can't trust it. It feeds on fears and regrets." "Then why did you come back?" "I thought I could set things right," she replied, anguish etched across her features. "But I was pulled back and there's no escape." A chill ran through me. I was beginning to understand that this cabin had its own dark history, one intertwined with the faces of those who came before me. Suddenly, the night erupted with that haunting growl again. The creature was aware of our presence. "That's not just the creature," she warned, glancing back at the cabin. It's the echoes of everyone who has ever been trapped here. Panic flared inside me. I couldn't stay out here with her and let whatever was in there get to us. We need to warn them. Whoever is in that cabin. But before I could finish, the shadows shifted violently, and the air warped with a palpable force. I felt myself pulled back towards the cabin, as if it reached out to reclaim me. The woman gripped my arm tightly, her eyes wide with fear. "Don't fight it. We have to face it together," she screamed as the ground trembled beneath our feet, and in that terrifying moment, I realized that escaping was not an option anymore. Whatever was in that cabin wasn't finished with me yet. The ground continued to tremble beneath us, drawing me closer to the cabin's embrace. The woman held on tight, and in that moment, I knew we couldn't let fear dictate our next move. "We need a plan," I gasped, desperately wanting to escape whatever darkness was creeping in. The growls rose, rumbling as if the cabin itself was alive, eager to swallow us both whole. "The mirror," the woman said, her eyes darting toward the cabin. "It's the key to everything. It could either bind you further or set you free." I looked down at the shards in my hands, each piece reflecting glimpses of fear and longing that had haunted me since my arrival. But how? Just then, a loud crash echoed from the cabin, followed by the sound of scurrying footsteps. I could feel a presence lurking, waiting to pounce as soon as I turned my back. "We must face it together. If we don't confront it, it will consume us," she urged, with steely resolve. I nodded, clutching the mirror fragments tighter. "Let us do this." Together, we moved toward the cabin, our steps synchronized as determination cut through the encroaching darkness. The door swung open as though inviting us inside, the atmosphere thick with anticipation. I had the distinct feeling that every single thing that had happened thus far was leading us to this moment. As we stepped inside, the shadows within writhed like restless spirits. The air felt charged, pulsing with raw energy. The growl intensified as the creature emerged from the depths, filling the space with palpable dread. It was the same hulking figure, but this time its eyes lit up with a malevolent gleam. "You shouldn't have come back," it hissed, its jagged teeth glistening. "You know nothing of this place. You cannot fight what you are. Neither will you take us," I shouted, raising the mirror shards before the creature. It flinched, momentarily hesitating. "We are not afraid of you." The woman stepped forward beside me, her chin raised defiantly. "We choose to face the truth together." With every ounce of strength I had, I thrust the mirror shards toward the creature, hoping that the very essence of our fears would bind it. I could feel the room pulse with energy as the shadows twisted and contorted, as if caught in a whirlwind of our combined will. "What do you see?" I roared, my voice echoing off the walls. "What fears bind you?" The creature howled, shrieking with fury as the reflection of its twisted self began to unravel. The shadows around us retreated, swirling back with an almost reluctant energy. The cabin itself trembled, disorienting as the room shifted beneath our feet, splintering the darkness. Suddenly, I was flooded with faces of those lost to the shadow, children laughing, friends smiling, all dimming as the darkness engulfed them. But one image stood out among the rest. My own face stared back at me, empty and void. I realized then the creature was born of every moment I had feared the most, stitched together by regrets and sorrow I had buried deep. In that instant, everything shifted. "It's our fears that gave you life," I shouted, enlightened by clarity. "But we choose to stand against you now." The creature screeched again, unable to bear the weight of its own truth. With a final blast of energy, it lunged at us, shadows clawing from every angle. I sank to my knees, tears streaming as I held the fragments against my chest, letting them shine in the dim light. The realization was profound. The darkness was not just external, it flickered within me as well. With a roar, I released a shock of energy through the shards, flooding the cabin with blinding light. The growl turned to a wail, and I could see the shadows recoil from the brightness. The cabin shook violently, and I knew we were close to overriding the darkness. "Now!" I yelled to the woman, and we both thrust our mirrors toward the creature. The swell of light burst forth, engulfing the room in its embrace. In a final moment, the emptiness of the creature warped, its form becoming a swirling tempest of shadows fighting to hold itself together. "You cannot escape me!" it screamed, but the words dissipated like smoke as I focused. "I choose freedom," I shouted, not just to it, but to every moment of fear within me. With one last push, light erupted from the mirrors, filling the cabin as the creature withered under its weight. It howled, its form shattering into fragments, dissolving into visions that flashed with every regret and fear. The cabin groaned one final time, the walls shuddering violently, and then plunged into silence that I felt the ground solidify beneath me and the weight of dread lift. The darkness that had haunted me receded, and I knew then that I was free from its grasp. As I turned to the woman, ready to embrace our victory, I saw emptiness where she had stood just like all the others. The cabin was empty now, completely silent. A shudder ran through me as I realized I was again alone. I backed away slowly, the remnants of the confrontation vibrating through the air, leaving only those words echoing faintly. "Let us." And I staggered outside, the night air cleansing yet heavy. It would never truly be over, and I would always carry the shadows of that place with me. Walking away, I couldn't shake the lingering questions. How many were lost within the woods? How many had faced the call only to succumb to the darkness? The cabin loomed behind me, an imposing mass against the starlit sky. I didn't dare look back. I knew I wouldn't return, but the inkling of unease settled deep in my gut. I faced the darkness, and yet, somehow, I could still feel it watching from somewhere in the dim recesses of the woods. That I moved on. I had survived. But I knew what I had encountered would linger, far beyond the edges of memory. A part of me would always wonder what truly happened, whether it was the darkness of the cabin or merely reflections of my fears that needed facing. I had escaped, but I couldn't shake the eerie feeling of looking over my shoulder, waiting for something else to call me back.